Sports and supercar values have been declining since the summer of 2022, but the depreciation rates have been decreasing. The market is down by 7% compared to last year, while this used to be 9.8%. However, this 7% is an average number, and it doesn't cover the most extreme cases. Some cars lost up to 30%. In this video we'll cover the cars that lost the most during last year, and therefore aren't the most financially savvy purchases. Now before we dive into the details, we need to contextualize the current market situation. Lockdowns, economic uncertainty, and government interventions resulted in surging demand and plummeting supply. Suddenly, investing in cars was no longer something for the elite. Cars were no longer traded at exclusive auctions. The increasing number of online auction platforms brought the supercar market into the homes of many. Inevitable, the scarcity level in the market increased and resulted in a playground for speculators, where every purchase seemed destined for profit. Some cars increased by 50%. The growth rate was unprecedented. But beneath the surging prices, fractures started to emerge. In the first half of 2022, the tide shifted and the rules of the market changed. The market topped and the era of guaranteed profits came to an abrupt halt. Of course, it was bound to happen. The growth rate was unsustainable and the invisible hand stabilized the market. Cars were selling slower and slower, causing increasing inventory levels, and speculators could no longer flip cars. It took, however, up until the summer of 2022 before the realization kicked in fully. What followed was something that we didn't see for a few years. Partially fueled by increasing interest rates, cars started to depreciate, and they did so at above normal rates. The average rates for sports and supercars was around 9.8% during 2023. However, towards the end of 2023 and during 2024, we saw that depreciation rates decreased and somewhat normalized. The Porsche sports car market has been exceptionally strong, for example, but there are also markets that are lagging behind in terms of price strength. Let's dive into the data. Over here we have the US year-over-year price changes for almost all cars that feature on my channel. So what can we see? On the horizontal axis we have the price change compared to last year in percentages, and on the vertical axis we have the number of cars to which this change applies. For example, 17 cars lost approximately 13 to 17%. Now looking at this plot, we can see that the average decline was 7% during last year, but that most cars lost between 1 and 11%. This is a change from last year. The average decline was around 10%, and most cars lost between 4.5 and 15%. Now despite a general decrease in depreciation, we can see that there are still plenty of cars that are depreciating quickly and fall outside of the normal range. As an owner or buyer, you most likely want to avoid the cars that lost more than 11%. So let's zoom into this segment of the market. We're not going to cover all of them, but the ones which I think are most interesting. We start with the fastest depreciating car at the moment, the Corvette Z06. Looking at the trend, we can see that prices dropped from $229,000 to $156,000. That amounts to $73,000 or 31.9%. Now it's important to point out what this decrease actually represents and what this means for you. Price premiums have been extortionate on these cars, and this drop only applies to you if you pay the full premium. If you paid the MSRP of, let's say, $150,000, you're of course looking at a loss of 0%. Going forward, it seems then also unlikely to me that we can expect another drop of 32% during next year. The Stingrays also fall in the top 25% of cars that decreased the most, but the rate is much more manageable. We can see that prices fell by 13% in the coupe market and by 12.7% in the convertible market. In monetary terms, these rates amount to $11,500 and $12,500 and brought the price levels down to $77,000 and $86,000 respectively. Now if you want to know more about the Corvette C8 market, you need to check out my previous video. It contains much more details on the prices and also on the inventory levels. We'll now continue with the next high depreciating car, the Maserati MC20. Look at that. The MC20s are still falling linearly, and they are doing so at an extremely high rate. Coupes are down by 26%, and this applies to both the 2022 and 2023 cars. That's a loss of $70,000. Now it won't come as a surprise that these cars belong to the group of slowest selling sports and supercars. 60% of the cars that were for sale in February were still for sale in May. Now this loss of $70,000 basically means that you lost an M4 competition. A used example will set you back $74,000, but if you wait a bit longer, it could be significantly less. Last year they lost 14.8% or $12,900. The CLS lost even more. Values decreased by 18.1% or $28,000. Luckily for owners though, there seems to be a small slowdown in the depreciation rate. The base model, which isn't displayed here, lost a lot less at 7.2%. Now even spending the equivalent of multiple M4s on an Italian exotic doesn't guarantee that you get a low depreciating car. Over here we have the price trends for the SF90, split by the Spiders and the Coupes. This reveals that the trend in the SF90 market flattened slightly, but that is still exceptionally steep. Prices are down by 15% compared to last year. Due to the high price point, this amounts to $99,500. And that brings us to a group of cars that's notorious for its high depreciation. Front-engine GTs or sports GTs. Only a small group of cars in this segment has a low depreciation rate. Most of them depreciate slightly quicker than the average. Yet, just as in the general market, rates decrease slightly in this segment. Nevertheless, the F-Type continues to depreciate quickly, especially the latest models. Over here we have the trends for the P380 and 4-cylinders after the facelift. This shows us that P380s are down by 15.4% or $10,900. 4-cylinders, as you might have expected, depreciated even more quickly. They decreased by 19.2% during last year. The difference in monetary terms is not so big as the rate of 19.2% amounts to $11,200. If we switch to the V8s after the facelift, we can see similar steep depreciation rates. P450s are down by 12.6% and Rs by 15.6%. Rates that amount to $9,700 and $12,700 respectively. Note that the median prices for Rs are now at approximately the same level as for the P450s. This is of course because the latter ones are newer. The next car on the list is the Nissan Z, but just as in the Corvette Z06 market, it's important to customize the number to your situation. Over here we can see that prices for the Z have been coming down quickly. They fell by 20.6% during last year or $12,600. This brought prices down to $48,500. Yet, this drop purely represents the deflation of the price premiums. If I add the new prices to the graph, you can see that used cars were listed above MSRP for a long time. This also means that the 20.6% depreciation rate only applies to you if you paid the price premium. Your loss is of course much smaller if you paid MSRP 1 year ago. Looking at the recent situation, we can see that the market cooled down a bit, as used cars are priced below new cars. Let's have a look at the final car, the V Advantage. Prices are still decreasing, but it might be the last time that the Vantage makes it to the list. We can see that the depreciation rates were quite high for a long time, but started to flatten during 2023. The drop of 11.9% during last year means that it just falls in the top 25% of quickest depreciating cars, but it might not make the cut next time. These cars are now on average 4 years old, so it's no surprise that we can finally start to see a flattening in the trend. I already mentioned it before, but I will say it again. If you always lusted after one, now could be an efficient moment to make your purchase. So we covered now quite a few cars that belong to the top 25% of quickest depreciating cars. Yet, we only looked at sports and supercars. Once you start to consider other categories, the list expands. Base models of the Urus are for example coming down at a consistent 13% per year. Taycan turbos are still plummeting at 25% per year. 971 Panameras at approximately 15%, and the same applies to the 4-door AMG GTs. Head over to my channel if you want to see the price trends for these cars. Now if you care about the value of your car, all of the previous named models aren't the best choices at the moment. They're all dropping significantly quicker than the market average. Naturally, it would be smarter from a financial standpoint to opt for a model that depreciates approximately at the same rate as the market or even less. You can find those cars on my channel. But buying a car is of course not only about the financials, it's also about the intangible value that it brings. The aim of this video, and for all the other videos for that matter, is then also merely to provide you with the numbers so that they can assist you in your decision-making process. Only you can decide how much depreciation is too much. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. Now if you enjoy this data-driven way of analyzing car prices but would like to see a video for a different car, for example about one of the cars that we covered in this video, head over to my channel. Over there you'll find detailed market analysis for a large variety of cars. Can't find the car you're looking for? Let me know the name of the car by commenting it down below in the comment section. Once there are enough requests for a certain car, I'll make a video about it. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you in 2 weeks for a new video.